In the darkness of a forgotten alleyway, a 5-year-old girl risked everything to save an abandoned baby from a storm drain. When the video went viral, a heartless Wall Street mogul saw something that would change his life forever. What he discovered about that baby shattered all his certainties and forced him to choose between his fortune and his humanity. Subscribe to the channel for heartwarming stories every day. The smell of rain mixed with asphalt filled the early morning air as the girl woke up shivering. Her ragged clothes clung to her thin body, soaked by the light drizzle falling over the sleeping city. At 5 years old, she already knew every shadow of that alley, every crack in the concrete where she could hide when the sirens got close. Her bare feet touched the cold ground. Hunger gnawed at her stomach like a ravenous animal, but something different caught her attention. A faint sound, almost a whisper, was coming from somewhere nearby. She stopped, tilting her small head to listen better. It was crying, weak, desperate, like a lost kitten's meow. The girl looked around. The alley was empty, illuminated only by the yellowish glow of a distant streetlight. Cars passed on the main street without slowing down, their headlights cutting through the darkness for a few seconds before disappearing again. The sound was coming from below. From inside the manhole, she approached the partially open iron cover, her heart pounding in her chest. The crying became clearer, more urgent. It was a baby, she was sure of it. Her small hands tried to lift the heavy cover, but it was impossible. So, carefully, she reached her thin arms through the opening, feeling around in the damp darkness. Her fingers touched something soft, wrapped in wet cloths. On the other side of town, in a penthouse apartment occupying the top floor of a skyscraper, a 42-year-old man gazed out at the void through floor-to-ceiling windows. His silhouette against the city lights looked carved from ice. Perfectly groomed graying hair, an impeccable suit even at 3 in the morning, an erect posture that betrayed years of absolute control. He hadn't slept in months. Not since she was gone. The apartment was a monument to emptiness. Expensive furniture arranged with millimeter precision, works of art that cost more than entire houses, but no sign of real life, no photos, no memories. He had ordered everything that could connect him to the past removed. His fingers slowly swirled a glass of bourbon, the golden liquid reflecting the city lights. 3 years. 3 years since he lost everything in a single day. His wife, the son who never got to be born, the future he had planned with the precision of an engineer. The phone rang, cutting through the silence like a blade. "Sir, you need to see this." His assistant's voice sounded tense, even through the encrypted line. "A video is circulating online. It already has 5 million views." He sighed, walking to the desk where 3 monitors displayed charts of his companies. Profits, losses, numbers that danced in cold, soulless colors. "And why would I care? It's about a child, sir, a little girl. She saved a baby." Something cold ran down his spine. He didn't know why. Meanwhile, in the alley, the girl pulled the wet bundle with all the strength her frail body could muster. When she finally managed to bring it to the surface, her cry was lost in the early morning. It was a baby, newborn. The skin bluish, the little body covered in ants that crawled up and down as if they were the only ones to notice its existence. The little eyes closed, the lips purple, the chest rising and falling in almost imperceptible movements. "No, no, no," she whispered, her tears falling on the baby's face. She began to carefully brush away the insects, blowing gently, trying to warm it with her own body. "It's okay. I'm here with you now." Her choked voice echoed in the empty alley as she pressed the baby to her chest, rocking it as she had seen mothers do in the movies she watched through shop windows. It was at that moment that the early morning delivery driver passed by. He saw the scene, instinctively grabbed his cell phone, recorded it without thinking. He posted it immediately with a simple caption, A little girl saved an abandoned baby from the storm drain. Share to find help. In 2 hours, the video had already gone around the world. In the silent apartment, the mogul clicked on the link his assistant had sent. The screen filled with the grainy image of a tiny, dirty girl holding a baby against her chest while crying softly. Her words reached him through the speakers. "It's okay. I'm here with you now." Something inside him broke. His hands trembled. The glass of bourbon slipped through his fingers, shattering on the marble floor, but he didn't hear the noise. He didn't feel the shards cutting his bare feet. He only saw that girl, that baby, that pure compassion, without calculation, without self-interest. How long had it been since he'd seen anything like it? He watched the video 5 more times. With each repetition, the pain in his chest grew, but something new was also born. An urgency, a need to act that he hadn't felt in years. He picked up the phone with still, trembling hands. "Find that girl. Now." "Sir?" "You heard me. Mobilize all necessary resources, lawyers, investigators, social workers. I want to know where she is, who is taking care of her, what is the situation with that baby, and I want all of that in 1 hour." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Sir, it's almost 4 in the morning. I didn't ask what time it is." His voice cut through the air like cold steel. 1 hour, not 2 minutes more. He hung up and returned to the window. But now he no longer saw the emptiness. He saw that girl holding a baby that wasn't hers, offering love to someone who had never given her anything in return. Something had awakened inside him, something he thought had died with her. For the first time in 3 years, he felt that maybe there was still a reason to keep breathing. The public hospital was swarming, even in the early morning, hallways yellowed by years of use, the smell of disinfectant mixed with the sweat and desperation of those waiting for miracles. In the pediatric ward, improvised in a room that should have accommodated half the equipment crammed in there, a borrowed incubator kept a baby alive. The girl hadn't left. Sitting in a plastic chair next to the equipment, she watched every movement of the little body. Her clothes, now a pink outfit donated by a nurse, were too big, making her look even smaller. But her eyes carried a determination that impressed the health professionals. "Honey, you need to eat something," said the head nurse, approaching with a plate of hospital food. "What about him?" The child's voice was firm, despite being small. "Will he eat too?" He was accompanied by 3 lawyers, 2 assistants, and the hospital administrator, who had been woken up an hour earlier by a call that would change the institution's budget forever. His footsteps echoed through the hallway like a symphony of power and haste. When he entered the pediatric ward, he stopped. There she was, the girl from the video, smaller than he imagined, more fragile, but with something in her eyes that hit him like a punch to the gut. She didn't move when he approached. She just watched him with that brutal honesty of children who have seen too much. "Did you come to see him?" she asked, indicating the incubator with a nod of her head. He knelt down. For the first time in years, he lowered himself before someone. "I came to see both of you." The answer came out before he could think. His lawyers exchanged worried glances. The hospital administrator cleared his throat, uncomfortable. The girl studied him for a long moment. Then, as if making an important decision, she got up from the chair and approached him. "He's very small," she whispered, as if sharing a secret. "The doctors say he's strong, but I can see that he's scared. At night, when it gets really quiet, I talk to him. I tell him stories I made up. He likes them." The mogul felt something moist in his eyes. When was the last time he had cried? What kind of stories? Stories about families, about mothers who don't abandon their children, about houses with roofs that don't leak when it rains. She stopped, as if she realized she had revealed too much about herself. "Do you have kids?" The question hit him like a bullet. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to control the pain that still bled fresh. I did. Almost did." Something in his voice made the girl move closer. She placed a small, warm hand on his. "I'm sorry." The simplicity of the phrase, the absolute sincerity with which it was said, broke something inside him that had been resisting for years. A tear rolled down his face, then another. The lawyers shifted uncomfortably. The hospital administrator pretended to check some papers, but the girl just stood there, her hand on his, offering a comfort he didn't know he needed. "What's your name?" he asked. "People call me a lot of things, none of them very nice." She shrugged. "What about you?" He thought of all the ways he was known, the tycoon, the ruthless businessman, the richest man in the city, the widower who became a money-making machine. I'm also called a lot of things, none of them very nice lately." She smiled. It was the first smile he had seen on that little face, and it was like seeing the sun rise after a long night. "Then we're alike." The baby stirred in the incubator, making a soft sound. Immediately, both of them turned to him. The girl began to hum a wordless melody, something that seemed made up on the spot. The baby calmed down. "He likes music," she explained. "I figured it out yesterday. When I sing, he stops crying." The mogul watched the scene, feeling something strange grow in his chest. An urgent need to protect those two little beings, to give them everything they never had, to fill them with the love that was left inside him, without a destination. "Doctor," he addressed the hospital administrator, without taking his eyes off the girl and the baby, "how much would it cost to renovate this ward?" "Sir?" "New equipment, more space, better conditions." "How much?" The administrator swallowed hard. "Well, for a complete renovation, we're talking about a few million. Get me the budget by tomorrow." "But, sir—" He stood up, finally taking his eyes off the girl to face the administrator. "Doctor, that child saved a life with her bare hands. She risked everything for someone she didn't even know. Now it's my turn to do something." One of the lawyers approached. "Sir, perhaps we should discuss this in private." "No." His voice was firm. "Everything I need to discuss is here." He pointed to the girl and the baby. "I want to cover his treatment. I want to provide suitable shelter for her. And I want you to find out if there's any legal way for me to take care of both of them." Total silence in the room. The girl watched him with an expression he couldn't decipher. Then, without warning, she approached and hugged his leg. It was a quick, shy hug, but it carried a gratitude impossible to express in words. "Thank you," she whispered against the expensive fabric of his suit. At that moment, he knew that his life had changed forever. He didn't know how, he didn't know why, but he knew that those two little beings had filled a void he believed to be permanent. The man who hadn't smiled in years felt the corners of his mouth twitch. It was strange, almost painful, but it was a smile. 3 days had passed since the meeting at the hospital, and the mogul couldn't concentrate on anything else. His impeccable routine, meetings, reports, decisions that moved millions, seemed to have lost all meaning. Every few minutes, he found himself thinking about the girl and the baby. He had a private medical team installed at the hospital, ensuring that the little one received the best possible care. He ordered them to bring decent food for the girl, appropriate clothes, toys that she politely refused, saying she couldn't play while the baby wasn't well. But now, sitting in his office on the 40th floor, surrounded by his partners and advisors, he faced a resistance he didn't expect. "You've completely lost your mind," said his brother, slamming his fist on the mahogany table. "Spending a fortune on a street kid and an abandoned baby? The shareholders are questioning your leadership." The mogul kept his eyes fixed on the window, watching the city below. Tiny people walking like ants, each carrying their own invisible dramas. "Maybe it's time for you to take a leave of absence," continued the brother. "Ever since she died, you haven't been the same. And now this, obsession with lost children. Watch your words." The mogul's voice was low, dangerous. "Or what? Are you going to fire me for telling the truth?" The brother stood up, angry. "You're destroying everything we've built. Why? Because of a moment of weakness. Because of guilt. The mogul turned slowly in his chair. His eyes were like ice. Guilt. About what? You know very well. If you hadn't been so cold with her, if you had given her the support she needed, maybe she wouldn't have. She left you because you never knew how to truly love. And now you're trying to compensate for it with strangers you don't even know. The door closed with a dull thud. Alone, the mogul rested his hands on the desk, breathing heavily. His brother's words echoed in his mind like poisoned darts. Was that it? Guilt? A desperate attempt to redeem past mistakes? He closed his eyes and saw her face. His wife. Beautiful, sensitive, always trying to touch the human side, he hid under layers of ambition and control. She had tried. God knew how she had tried. "Do you love me, or do you love what I represent?" she had asked one night, 2 months before she died. "Because sometimes I feel like I'm just another trophy in your collection." He hadn't known how to answer. Not because he didn't love her, but because he had never learned to express feelings without turning them into a strategy or conquest. When she died in the accident, taking with her the son they were expecting, he locked himself in that armor of ice as a way to survive. Work was safe, numbers didn't lie, profits didn't abandon him. But now, the phone rang. It was the hospital. "Sir, you need to get here, now." His heart leaped. "What happened? Is the baby okay?" "The baby's fine. But the girl, she has a high fever, and she's refusing treatment." 20 minutes later, he was running through the hospital corridors like he had never run in his life. He found the girl huddled next to the incubator, shaking violently, but refusing to leave the baby. "No," she murmured to the nurses who were trying to take her to another room. "I can't leave him alone. He needs me." "Honey, you're very sick," said a nurse patiently. "You need treatment." "What if he cries? What if he misses me? I promised I wouldn't leave him." The mogul knelt beside her, the child's skin burned with fever, but her eyes shone with a fierce determination. "He'll be okay. I'll stay with him." She studied him with that piercing gaze. "Do you promise? Do you really promise?" "I promise. But what if you get tired of it? What if you decide it's not worth it? Everyone always decides it's not worth it." The pain in her voice broke something fundamental within him. How many times had that child been abandoned? How many empty promises had she heard? He held her small, feverish hands. "I will never abandon you, or him. That's a promise I make not only to you, but to myself." For the first time since they met, she seemed to truly believe him. She allowed the nurses to take her, but not before whispering detailed instructions on how to soothe the baby if he woke up crying. While she was being treated in the next room, the mogul kept his promise. He sat next to the incubator, watching the little sleeping face. From time to time he hummed the wordless melodies he had heard the girl sing. It was there, in that silent vigil, that he understood. It wasn't guilt he felt. It wasn't a whim of a bored, rich man. It was something much simpler and much deeper. It was love, pure, without calculation, without expectations. The kind of love his wife had tried to teach him, but that he was only now able to understand. When the girl returned, hours later, pale but fever-free, she found him exactly where she had left him. He was sleeping in the uncomfortable chair, one hand resting on the incubator, as if he wanted to transmit protection through the glass. She smiled, a different smile, more confident, and settled into the chair beside him. For the first time in her short life, she wasn't alone. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel empty. But outside, storms were brewing. The media had discovered the story. His partners were planning an intervention, and secrets buried in the past were beginning to stir, threatening to destroy the fragile peace they had found. The front page of the morning paper displayed a grainy photo, the mogul leaving the public hospital with a look that the reporters interpreted as visibly shaken. The headline screamed, Tycoon goes nuts, spends fortune on street urchin and stray baby. He folded the newspaper calmly, drinking his breakfast coffee alone at the table that used to accommodate 12 people. He had decided he wouldn't go back to the office today, not tomorrow, maybe never again in the same way. For the first time in 15 years, his priorities had changed. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, angry partners, friends from high society wanting to understand what was happening to the man they considered an example of business rationality. He turned off all the devices. When he arrived at the hospital, he found a small commotion at the entrance. Cameras, microphones, journalists trying to get in to photograph the girl who bewitched the mogul. He felt a cold anger rise up his spine. "Get out, now!" His voice cut through the air like a blade. "Sir, we'd just like a few statements about your sudden interest in charity." "It's not charity." He stopped, staring at each reporter. "And if I see any of you bothering these children, I will use all my legal resources to destroy your careers." "Understood." He parted them like Moses parting the Red Sea. He found the girl sitting on the floor next to the incubator, drawing on a paper with crayons that someone had brought. It was a simple drawing, 2 small figures and a large one, all holding hands, under a disproportionate yellow sun. "A family?" he asked, sitting on the floor beside her. "Yeah." She didn't look up from the drawing. "Do you draw?" "No, never had time for it." "Everyone has time. You just have to choose to make it." The simplicity of the observation struck him. How many things had he stopped doing because he believed he didn't have time? How many moments had he missed chasing things that, in the end, didn't matter? "Will you teach me?" She finally looked at him, surprised. Then she smiled and held out a red crayon. "First the house. Everyone needs a house." For the next hour, he found himself focused on something completely different from spreadsheets and charts. His hands, accustomed to signing million-dollar contracts, trembled trying to draw a simple house. The girl corrected him with infinite patience, suggesting where to put the windows, how to make the smoke from the chimney. "Did your wife like to draw?" she asked suddenly. The question caught him off guard. "How do you know I was married?" "I was always busy." She must have been sad about that. She must have been. The admission hurt more than he expected. The girl placed her small hand on his, still holding the crayon. "But she must have loved you very much too." "Sad people only get sad when they love a lot." Tears welled up without warning in his eyes. How could that child who had lived on the streets, abandoned by everyone, have so much wisdom about love? "How do you know these things?" "I observe. When you have nothing, all that's left is to observe people, and crying teaches you a lot about feelings." They returned to the drawing in silence. When they finished, it was the most imperfect and most beautiful representation of a family he had ever seen. 3 disproportionate figures, colored outside the lines, but overflowing with something he couldn't name. "Can I keep it?" he asked. "It's yours. I made it for you." He folded the paper carefully and put it in the inside pocket of his suit jacket, next to his wallet and important documents. At that moment, the drawing of a 5-year-old child was worth more to him than all the contracts he had ever signed. The baby woke up making soft noises. Immediately, both of them turned to him. The girl began to hum that wordless melody, but this time the mogul tried to join in. His voice was hesitant, out of tune, but the baby seemed to like it, his little eyes fixed on the man's face as if trying to memorize those features. "He likes you," said the girl. "Babies can tell when someone is really good." "How can you be sure I'm good?" "Because you're here. Bad people don't waste time on kids who can't give them anything in return." "But you do give me things," he thought. "You both give me everything." At that moment, a nurse approached with a worried expression. "Sir, there's a man outside who wants to talk to you. He says he's a lawyer and he has a court order." The mogul's stomach clenched. He knew this moment would come. His partners, his brother, weren't going to passively accept his change of priorities. but he hadn't expected it to be this fast. What kind of order? A temporary restraining order, sir. They claim that you're not in a mental condition to make financial decisions. The girl looked at him with a frightened expression. Are you going to have to leave? He held her hands, feeling the familiar world crumble around him, but strangely he didn't feel fear. He felt determination. No, I'm not going anywhere without you. He stood up, adjusted his suit jacket, and walked toward the door. He was going to face the vultures who wanted to destroy the only real thing he had found in years, and he was going to win, because now he had something to fight for that was worth more than money. He had a family. The lawyer who was waiting for him in the hospital corridor was a thin man with glasses, who exuded the kind of cold arrogance that only those who bill by the hour develop. He carried a leather briefcase and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sir, my name is Mr. Caldwell. I represent a group of shareholders and family members concerned about your recent, impulsive decisions. The mogul studied him in silence. He knew the type. He had hired dozens like him over the years, professionals who turned the law into a weapon and justice into a business. What impulsive decisions? His voice was dangerously calm. Sir, you've spent $3 million on hospital renovations in a week. You've hired a private medical team to care for unknown children. You've cancelled important meetings, ignored calls from international partners. The lawyer opened the briefcase, taking out documents. Your partners are concerned. Your family is concerned. My family died 3 years ago. Your brother disagrees. He claims that since the tragedy, you've been showing signs of increasing emotional instability, culminating in this fixation on abandoned children. The word fixation came out of the lawyer's mouth like poison. The mogul felt the anger rise, but he controlled it. He had learned in those few days with the girl that blind anger only destroyed important things. And what exactly do you want? An independent psychiatric evaluation. Temporarily, the company's financial decisions will be made by an administrative board until your mental condition is clarified. My mental condition has never been better. Sir, please be reasonable. You're proposing to adopt 2 children you found in questionable circumstances. One of them doesn't even have documents. The baby is of completely unknown origin. This isn't charity, It's what? The lawyer hesitated, realizing he had stepped on dangerous ground. It's reckless. Financially, legally, socially. You're risking your reputation, your company, your future for an emotional impulse. At that moment, the girl appeared at the door of the pediatric ward. She had heard raised voices and had come to check if everything was okay. Seeing the unknown man with a briefcase and documents, her eyes filled with fear, the kind of fear that children develop when they associate men in suits with trouble. Are you going to have to leave? She asked the mogul, her voice small and scared. The lawyer looked at her with an expression of poorly disguised disdain. Young lady, this is an adult matter. Don't talk to her. The mogul's voice cut through the air like ice. Don't look at her. Don't breathe in her direction. The lawyer recoiled, startled by the sudden transformation in the man before him. The mogul knelt before the girl, his large hands swallowing hers. I'm not going anywhere. That's a promise. But the man said, the man is wrong about many things. He stood up, facing the lawyer again. Tell my partners they can keep the company. Tell my brother he can keep my share. But these children stay with me. Sir, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. He approached the lawyer, his intimidating presence filling the corridor. And now get out of my way. I have a family to take care of. The lawyer swallowed hard, hastily put away the papers, and left without looking back. The girl watched him with an expression of admiration and relief. You chose us. You chose me first. I thought it was pretty. The adjustment wasn't easy. The mogul discovered that taking care of children was more challenging than running a multinational corporation. Sophia would wake up screaming in the middle of the night, dreaming of her time on the streets. Miguel cried inconsolably sometimes, as if he missed something he didn't even know what it was. But there were also moments of pure magic. Sophia learning to read, her eyes sparkling when she deciphered a new word. Miguel giving his first real smile, tiny fingers closing around the mogul's index finger, as if he never wanted to let go. Gradually, the house filled with life. Sophia's drawings stuck to the refrigerator, toys scattered around the living room, the sound of laughter echoing through the corridors that had previously known only silence. But the outside world wouldn't leave them alone. Paparazzi camped outside the house. Sensationalist reports about the tycoon who lost his sanity, lawsuits trying to challenge the custody of the children. One morning, Sophia found him reading the newspaper in the kitchen, his expression darker than usual. "Are you regretting it?" she asked, climbing onto a chair to sit beside him. "Regretting what?" "Choosing us. Everyone is saying you've gone crazy." He folded the newspaper and looked into her eyes, those eyes that had already seen too much, but that still shone with hope. "Sophia, do you regret saving Miguel that day?" "Never. Even knowing it was going to be difficult? Even knowing that people were going to judge?" "Never," she repeated more firmly. "Then you understand how I feel." She smiled, a smile that completely transformed her small face. "We're a weird family, huh? The best weird family in the world." But as they built their bonds, powerful forces moved against them. The mogul's brother had hired private investigators to discover anything they could use against him. The media dug up every detail of their lives, and someone, somewhere, held a secret about Miguel that could change everything. Would the love they were building be strong enough to withstand the storm that was approaching? 3 months had passed since the mogul brought Sophia and Miguel home. A routine had settled in a way he never imagined possible. Breakfast with Sophia, telling her dreams from the night before, afternoons teaching her to ride a bike in the yard, nights cradling Miguel while Sophia made up stories about kind pirates and brave princesses. It was a grey Tuesday when the phone call changed everything. "Sir," said the tense voice of the private investigator he had hired weeks before to investigate Miguel's origins. "I need to see you urgently. I found something you need to know." The mogul's heart raced. From the first day, he knew that eventually he would have to face the reality about the baby's past. Part of him hoped that he was a true orphan without a family that could claim him. Another part of him, the part that was learning to be a father, knew that every child deserved to know their origins, no matter how much it might hurt. They arranged to meet at his old office, now rarely used. The detective arrived carrying a thick folder and a grave expression that made the mogul's stomach clench. "Sir, this is going to be difficult to hear," began the detective, sitting down across the desk. "I was able to trace the baby's origin through some DNA tests the hospital did, and, well, I cross-referenced them with databases of missing persons." He opened the folder, revealing photographs, documents, and medical reports. "The baby has a DNA match with a 17-year-old girl who was found dead 4 months ago. Drug overdose in a cheap motel in the suburbs." The mogul felt the world spin. Miguel was only 2 months old when Sophia found him. The dates matched perfectly. Did she have the baby alone? Apparently so. No one knew she was pregnant, not even her family. The detective hesitated before continuing. "Sir, there's one more thing. I was able to identify who she was." He turned over one of the photographs. It was the portrait of a pretty young woman with green eyes and dark hair. There was something familiar about that face, something that made the mogul's heart stop. Her name was Carolina Mendez Santos. The name hit the mogul like a lightning bolt. He knew that last name. He knew it very well. "Santos," he murmured, the pieces starting to fit together in a terrible and impossible way. "Sir, she was the daughter of Helena Santos, your ex-wife." The world stopped. Helena Santos. His first wife, whom he had divorced 15 years before, long before he met the woman who died pregnant in the accident. Helena, with whom he had a turbulent marriage that ended in accusations and bitterness. Helena, who had disappeared from his life, taking with her the teenage daughter he barely knew. Carolina was my stepdaughter. Yes, sir, and there's more. The detective turned another page. I got the baby's birth certificate. She managed to register him before she died. The father's name wasn't listed, but he showed a handwritten note on the back of the document. Father, I don't know who he is, but if something happens to me, please find my stepfather. He'll take care of him better than I could. The tears came without warning. The mogul held the document with trembling hands, reading and rereading the words written by the young woman who had been his stepdaughter and whom he practically ignored during the few years they were under the same roof. Miguel wasn't just an abandoned baby that Sophia had saved. He was his grandson, the son of the daughter he never bothered to really know. The young woman who had died alone, addicted to drugs, carrying a baby that she could barely take care of herself. There's more, sir, continued the detective in a gentle voice. I found some of her belongings in the motel. Letters, photos. She kept newspaper clippings about you, about your business success, about your marriage to your second wife. He showed a small box, full of yellowed clippings and old photographs. In most of the photos, Carolina appeared still small, always in the background, always with a sad expression in her eyes. She admired you, sir, even after all these years. The shy girl who hid behind her mother during the arguments, the teenager he treated with cold politeness but without real interest, the young woman who had tried several times to get closer to him before the divorce, only to be met with the same professional coldness he used with everyone, and now she was dead alone, addicted, desperate. And she had left a son, his grandson, abandoned in a storm drain, where he probably would have died if it weren't for a 5-year-old girl with more compassion in her little finger than he had shown in his entire life. Sir? The detective's voice seemed to come from far away. What do you want me to do with this information? The mogul wiped his face with his hands, trying to regain control. But how could he control himself? How could he deal with the discovery that he had failed so miserably as an adoptive father that his stepdaughter had preferred to die alone than to ask for his help? Anything else? His voice came out hoarsely. Yes, sir. There's one last thing. The detective hesitated. Your ex-wife, Helena, is alive. She lives in a small town upstate working as a teacher. She doesn't know that her daughter died. The shock was even greater. Helena was alive. The woman he had hurt so much during the divorce, who had disappeared taking her daughter, was alive and didn't know she had lost Carolina. She needs to know, he murmured. She needs to know about her daughter and about her grandson. At that moment, the door opened and Sophia ran in, carrying Miguel in her arms. Dad! Miguel won't stop crying and I don't know what to do, and she stopped when she saw the tears on his face. What happened? Are you okay? Dad. She had started calling him that the week before, naturally, as if it had always been that way. And now, holding Miguel, his grandson, he now discovered, she seemed so small, so fragile, but so brave. Sophia, sit here, he said, wiping his face and opening his arms. I need to tell you something very important. She approached, wary. Miguel had stopped crying, as he always did when he felt the mogul's presence. Miguel, he's not just a baby you saved. He's our family. He's my grandson. Sophia's eyes widened. What do you mean? He's the son of a girl who was my adopted daughter many years ago. A girl I didn't take care of properly, that I let go. Sophia processed the information with that seriousness that only children who grew up too fast possess. So Miguel was always your grandson, even before we met? Yes, and his mother. She died. A few months ago. Sophia hugged Miguel tighter, as if she wanted to protect him from all the pain in the world. So we were a real family from the beginning, she said finally. We just didn't know it. The simplicity with which she accepted everything almost made him cry again. But there was a question she hadn't asked yet, and he knew she would. "And me?" she asked softly. "Am I still part of the family, even knowing that Miguel is your real grandson?" He pulled her into a tight hug, kissing the top of her head. "Sophia, you're the one who made this family possible. You saved my grandson. You saved me. You're the most important thing that's ever happened in my life. Promise?" "I promise. Forever." But while they hugged, the detective quietly put away the documents. There was information he hadn't shared yet. Something he had discovered about Sophia, about her own origin, that would further complicate that already impossible situation. Some truths are too heavy to be revealed all at once. The discovery about Miguel had changed everything and nothing at the same time. The mogul now knew that the baby was his grandson, but that only intensified the love he already felt for him. The guilt for having failed Carolina was an open wound in his chest, but Sophia and Miguel had become his chance for redemption, his opportunity to do things right this time. For 2 weeks, they lived in a bubble of cautious happiness. The mogul had decided to tell Helena about the death of her daughter and about the grandson she didn't know. It would be painful, but she had the right to know. He scheduled a trip upstate, planning to take Sophia and Miguel to meet their grandmother. But fate, as always, had other plans. The bomb exploded on a Saturday morning. The mogul was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when he saw the cars parked outside. They weren't paparazzi this time. They were official cars, social services, police, lawyers. His blood ran cold. "Sophia, take Miguel and go to your room now." "What's happening?" "Go, please." The doorbell rang before she could question him. When he opened the door, he found a group of serious people in dark suits, carrying official documents and expressions of those who were there to carry out an unpleasant mission. "Sir, I'm Miss Davies from Child Protective Services," said a middle-aged woman, holding out identification. "We have a court order for the immediate removal of the children from this residence." The world collapsed. "What do you mean, removal?" "Sir, a case has been opened questioning your fitness for the custody of the children. There are allegations that you're mentally unstable, that the children were removed from the official adoption system without due legal process, and—" She hesitated. "There are also questions about the origin of the baby that need to be clarified." Behind her, he saw a familiar figure. His brother, accompanied by 2 lawyers, wore a falsely concerned expression. "You," the mogul said, his voice laden with icy fury, "you did this." The brother approached, feigning hesitation. "I worry about you. Since our sister-in-law died, you haven't been the same. And now this obsession with street kids. We need to help you see that this isn't healthy." "Obsession?" The word came out like a scream. "I found my grandson. I found my family." "What grandson?" The brother frowned, confused. "What are you talking about?" Before he could answer, Sophia appeared at the top of the stairs, carrying Miguel. Her eyes were wide with fear, but her voice was firm. "I'm not going." "Honey," said the social worker gently, "no one wants to hurt you. We're going to take you to a safe place until we resolve this situation." "I'm already in a safe place." Sophia descended the steps slowly, squeezing Miguel against her chest. "This is my dad. This is my home. This is my family. Sweetheart, you don't understand the situation. You're destroying my family." "Sir," intervened his brother, "you need treatment. When you're better, when you can see things clearly, these children will still be available for adoption." "Available for adoption?" The mogul's voice rose an octave. "They're my children." "Not legally," said one of the lawyers. "You never started the formal adoption process. Technically, you're in unlawful possession of minors." Sophia began to cry, squeezing Miguel so hard that the baby began to cry too. The sound of the 2 of them crying together was like knives in the mogul's heart. "Please," he pleaded, something he had never done in his life. "Please, let them stay. I'll do anything. I'll pay any amount, but don't take them away from me." "Sir, it's temporary," said the social worker. If you really care about these children, you'll cooperate. A month, maybe 2, and if everything goes well. A month, Sophia cried. A month! You promised you'd never abandon me. Her words were like a shot to the chest. He had promised. He had looked her in the eyes and promised he would never abandon her. And now, I'm not abandoning you, he said, his voice broken. I'm going to get you. I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to... Sir, you need to step away from the children now, ordered the police officer. No, Sophia ran to him, still holding Miguel. I'm not going to let you take me. I won't! The scene that followed was the most painful of the mogul's life. 2 officers held Sophia gently but firmly, while a social worker took Miguel from her arms. The girl's screams echoed through the house like an alarm siren, calling for him, begging him not to let this happen. Dad! Dad! Don't let them take me! You promised! You promised! He tried to approach but was held back by the officers. He could only stand there, helpless, watching the 2 most important people in his life being dragged away from him. Sophia, he shouted. Sophia, I'm going to get you. I promise I'm going to get you. But she was already being put in the official car, Miguel in the arms of a stranger, both crying as if the world was ending, and maybe it was. When the cars left, the mogul collapsed on the floor of the entrance of his house. His sobs echoed through the emptiness that had become his home in a matter of minutes. His brother approached, placing a hand on his shoulder. You'll thank me for this one day, when you're thinking clearly. He pushed his hand away violently, getting up with eyes red with anger and pain. Get out of my house. You need help. Get out of my house. The scream echoed through the entire street. Neighbors appeared in the windows. The brother recoiled, frightened by the intensity of the pain he saw in his eyes. I'm going to destroy you, the mogul whispered, his voice laden with a dark promise. I'm going to use every penny, every contact, every favor I'm entitled to in order to destroy your life, as you destroyed mine. You're proving my point, began the brother. I have better lawyers than yours, more competent detectives, infinite resources. And now I have something I never had before, a reason to use all of that without mercy. The brother swallowed hard, realizing that he might have underestimated the transformation the mogul had undergone. You're not the cold, calculating man I knew anymore, continued the mogul. I'm a desperate father. And there's nothing more dangerous in the world than a father fighting for his children. That night, alone in the house that had been filled with life and was now dead again, the mogul made a decision that would change everything. He wasn't just going to fight for Sophia and Miguel. He was going to uncover all the secrets, all the lies, all the conspiracies that had led to this moment, and he was going to destroy every person who had participated in the separation of his family, starting with his own brother. The war began on Monday. The mogul hadn't slept since they took Sophia and Miguel. He spent the entire night in his private office, surrounded by documents, computers, and 3 phones that wouldn't stop ringing. He had summoned the best family lawyers in the country, hired private investigators, and mobilized resources he hadn't used in years. If they wanted a legal battle, he would give them a war. "Sir," said Dr. Almeida, his lead attorney, entering the office at 6 in the morning, carrying several folders. "We got some important information." The mogul was standing by the window, watching the sunrise. He hadn't changed since the day before. His stubble and red eyes betrayed the sleepless night. "Speak." "First, about the court order. It was issued based on a falsified psychiatric report. Your brother bribed a doctor to sign a report saying that you show signs of severe mental disorder." "Falsified?" "Completely. The doctor didn't even examine you. We have recordings of him admitting this to our investigator." A spark of hope lit up in the mogul's chest. "Is that enough to overturn the order?" "It's a start, but there's more." Dr. Almeida opened another folder. "We discovered that your brother is planning to take full control of the company. He orchestrated this entire situation not out of concern for your mental sanity, but out of pure greed." "Son of a bitch," he muttered through his teeth. And there's something about the social worker who conducted the removal of the children. Ms. Davies has a history of accepting bribes to expedite adoption processes, especially for wealthy families who want to jump the line. The mogul turned around, interested. Continue. Sir, I don't think they just want to separate you from the children temporarily. They want to place them in a family that pays for it. Sophia is a beautiful, healthy girl. Miguel is just a baby. On the black market for adoptions, they're worth a lot of money. The anger that rose through the mogul's chest was different from anything he had ever felt. It was an icy, calculated, deadly fury. Where are the children now? In a temporary shelter downtown. We got a contact inside. Sophia isn't eating. She cries all the time, asks for you constantly. Miguel has developed a fever and refuses to take the bottle. The pain was physical, literal, as if someone had stuck a knife in his heart and was twisting it slowly. I need to see them. My children are suffering. And that's exactly why we're going to do this the right way, said a female voice at the door. They turned around. It was a woman in her 50s, grey hair pulled back in a bun, simple but elegant clothes. There was something familiar about her face. Who are you? Asked the mogul. The woman entered the office with firm steps, extending her hand. My name is Helena Santos. I'm Miguel's grandmother. The world stopped. Helena, his ex-wife, Carolina's mother, the woman he had hurt so much during the divorce that she had disappeared, taking her teenage daughter. Helena. His voice came out as a whisper. I got the call from your detective yesterday. About Carolina. About my grandson. Her words were controlled, but he could see the old pain in her eyes. I came to get the child. No. The answer came automatically, defensively. No? She raised an eyebrow. He's my grandson, son of my dead daughter. I have rights. He's my grandson too, interrupted the mogul, and he already has a family with me and Sophia. Sophia, the girl who saved him, the girl who you also want to take away from me. Helena studied him for a long moment. He had changed a lot in the 15 years since the divorce. The lines around his eyes were deeper, his hair completely grey, but he still maintained that dignified posture he remembered. Do you really love them? She asked, her voice softer. More than my own life. Even knowing that Sophia isn't your blood? That she's just a street kid you found by chance? Sophia saved me before I saved her. She gave me a reason to keep living when I thought there wasn't one anymore. Helena nodded slowly, as if something in her position had shifted. Carolina died alone, she said, her voice choked. Addicted, desperate, abandoned. I didn't even know she was pregnant. I didn't know either. If I had known, you would have done what? There was a hint of the old bitterness in her voice. You never cared about her when she was my responsibility. Why would you care when she was an adult? The accusation was like a slap, because it was true. He had been an absent, cold stepfather, more interested in his business than in the shy girl who tried to get closer to him. You're right, he admitted. I failed Carolina. I failed as a stepfather, as a man, as a human being. But I won't fail Miguel or Sophia. What if I decide to fight for him, if I use my rights as a biological grandmother? The mogul took a deep breath. Then we'll fight, and I'm going to win, because I have infinite resources and absolute determination. Helena smiled, a sad but genuine smile. You've changed. How so? The man I was married to would never have admitted that he had failed at anything. He would never have knelt on the floor to comfort a child. He would never have chosen a family over business. She approached the window, looking at the city below. I received the detective's reports, not only about Carolina and Miguel, but about you, about what you've been doing for the children, the renovation of the hospital, the house you bought, the way you've been taking care of them. And maybe you've finally learned how to truly love. The mogul felt tears in his eyes again. Helena, I know I don't have the right to ask this after everything I've done, but You want my help? I need your help. Alone, I'm just an eccentric millionaire trying to adopt children. But if you're by my side, if you confirm that Miguel is well cared for, that you approve, that I approve of my ex-husband raising my grandson with a street kid." "Yes." Helena was silent for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was firm. "I want to meet them first. I want to see for myself if this family you say you've built is real or just the whim of a rich man. They've been taken away. They're in a shelter. My brother—" "I know about your brother." Her voice hardened. "And I know about the corrupt social worker and the doctor who falsified the report. I'm not the naive woman you abandoned anymore. In these 15 years, I've learned how to fight." Dr. Almeida, who had been silent throughout the conversation, approached. "Ma'am, if you're willing to cooperate, we can use your status as a biological grandmother to challenge the court order. A close relative has priority over the state in the custody of a child." "What about the girl?" asked Helena. "Sophia? That's more complicated. She has no known relatives." "Then I would become her guardian too," Helena interrupted, "and delegate custody to the father she chose." The mogul looked at her in amazement. "You would do that?" "I would do that for Miguel, and because maybe it's time to fix the mistakes of the past." At that moment the phone rang. Dr. Almeida answered, his expression becoming increasingly grave. "It was our contact at the shelter," he said as he hung up. "Miguel is very sick. High fever, can't take the bottle, cries constantly. And Sophia tried to run away during the night. They found her walking on the road trying to get back home. We need to get them out of there now," said the mogul. "Sir, we don't have the challenge ready yet. Helena," he turned to his ex-wife, "do you have the authority as a grandmother to visit Miguel?" "Legally, yes." "Then let's go. Now let's get our children." Helena studied him once more, then nodded. "Let's get our family." For the first time in days, the mogul felt something akin to hope. He wasn't alone in this fight anymore. He had an unlikely but powerful ally, and together they were going to bring Sophia and Miguel home. The shelter was located in a rundown area of the city, a grey concrete building that seemed to have been designed to suck all hope from those who passed through its gates. The mogul parked outside, his hands trembling as he watched the barred windows, trying to imagine in which of those sterile rooms his children were. Helena got out of the passenger seat, adjusting her bag on her shoulder. There was a determination in her movements that he vaguely remembered from the time they were married, when she fought for causes she believed in. "Remember," said Dr. Almeida, getting out of the back seat with a folder full of documents, "officially, we're just here for a visit from the grandmother. Any attempt to remove the children without a court order—" "I know," interrupted the mogul. "But if my children are being mistreated, we won't do anything impulsive," Helena cut him off, placing a hand on his arm. "We're going to do this right." "I'd like to visit him." The clerk checked a clipboard, frowning. "Oh yeah, the little guy. He's been, well, a handful." "What kind of handful?" The millionaire's voice came out harsher than he intended. "And you are?" "The stepfather of the baby's mother," Helen answered quickly. "We came together." The clerk studied them with suspicion, then shrugged. "Follow me." They walked down hallways that echoed with their footsteps, passing rooms filled with children of all ages. Some played quietly, others just stared into space. The millionaire felt his heart clench, imagining Sophie there, lost among strangers. "Here," the clerk said, stopping in front of a door. "But fair warning, he won't stop crying. The caregivers are at their wits' end." She opened the door, and they entered a small room with 4 cribs. In one corner, a middle-aged woman was trying to soothe a baby who was crying desperately. It was Mikey. The millionaire had to restrain himself from rushing to him. The baby was visibly thinner, his skin pale, his little eyes red from crying so much. When he saw the millionaire, he stopped crying for a moment, as if trying to understand if it was real. "Mikey," Helen whispered, approaching the crib. "My grandson." "I'm sorry." the caregiver said, looking exhausted. He won't take a bottle, won't sleep, cries day and night. The doctors can't find anything physically wrong, but he misses his family, the millionaire said, reaching out for Mikey. May I? The caregiver hesitated, then handed him the baby. Immediately, Mikey stopped crying, snuggling against the familiar chest. His breathing calmed, his tiny fists closed around the millionaire's shirt. Amazing, the caregiver murmured. How did you do that? Love, Helen replied simply. And where's Sophie? The little girl who came with him? Oh, her. The caregiver made a worried expression. She's in isolation. Tried to run away twice, won't eat, won't talk to anyone. Dr. Ramirez said she needs a psych eval. We want to see her, demanded the millionaire. Sir, she's in timeout for trying to escape. She's 5 years old, he exploded, making Mikey startle in his arms. How do you put a 5-year-old in timeout for wanting to go home? Sir, please lower your voice. At that moment, they heard shouting coming from the hallway. Voices of staff trying to calm someone, the sound of something being thrown against the wall. I want my dad! I want my dad! You can't keep me here! It was Sophie. The millionaire ran out of the room, following the sound of her voice, Helen right behind him. They found a group of staff outside a small room, trying to get in, while Sophie screamed from the other side. He's coming to get me! He promised! You'll see! Sophie! The millionaire shouted. The silence was instant on the other side of the door. Daddy? Her voice was small, hesitant, as if she didn't believe it was real. Yes, honey. It's me. I'm here. Daddy! The shout was now of pure joy. Daddy! I knew you'd come! I knew it. Sir, intervened a staff member, the child is in timeout. She can't have visitors. Helen stepped forward, showing her driver's license again. I'm the child's grandmother. I have the legal right to visit her. But, Mom, she's not your biological granddaughter. She's my granddaughter in my heart, Helen said firmly, and that's enough. The staff member, intimidated by the authority in Helen's voice, opened the door. Sophie was in the corner of the small, empty room, her clothes dirty, her hair disheveled, but her eyes shone like stars when she saw the millionaire. Daddy! She threw herself into his arms, and he hugged her tightly, Mikey still nestled against his chest. For a moment they were a family again, complete, united. You took so long, Sophie whispered against his neck, but I knew you'd come. I'm sorry, honey. I'm sorry I took so long. Helen watched them, tears in her eyes. It was impossible to deny the love she saw there. It was real, pure, devastating in its intensity. Sophie, Helen said, approaching, my name is Helen. I'm Mikey's grandma. Sophie studied her with that brutal frankness of children. Are you going to try to separate us too? No, sweetheart. I came to help you stay together. Promise? I promise. At that moment, Mr. Evans appeared in the doorway, breathless. We did it. The judge accepted our challenge. The removal order was overturned due to a flaw in the original filing. The children can go home today. The relief that washed over the millionaire was so intense that he almost collapsed. Sophie screamed with joy, Mikey smiled his first smile in days, and Helen discreetly wiped away a tear. But there are conditions, the lawyer continued. Temporary custody goes to Helen as the closest biological relative, and there will be psychosocial monitoring for 6 months. I accept any condition, the millionaire said. I just want my kids home. Our kids, Helen corrected. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. I'm the official grandma. You're the chosen dad. We're a family. Sophie looked from one to the other, then smiled, the first real smile in days. So now I have a dad and a grandma. And a little brother, added the millionaire, looking at Mikey. The best messed up family in the world, Sophie declared, echoing the words he had said weeks before. As they left the shelter, Helen took the millionaire's arm. This doesn't erase the past, she said softly. It doesn't erase what happened to Carol or how our marriage ended. I know, but maybe Maybe we can build something new, something better, for them. He nodded, watching Sophie skip beside them, telling Mikey all the things they were going to do when they got home. It wasn't the ending he had imagined. It was better. It was a fresh start. 6 months later, the house had been completely transformed, not just by the toys scattered around the rooms or Sophie's drawings taped to every available surface, but by the life that pulsed in every corner. It was a life the millionaire had never experienced, messy, unpredictable, noisy, and absolutely perfect. Helen had moved into the guest room, initially as a temporary measure to facilitate the legal issue of custody. But now, watching her teach Sophie how to bake cookies in the kitchen while Mikey played in the playpen nearby, he couldn't imagine the house without her. "Grandma, Mikey's trying to eat the Play-Doh again," Sophie announced, running into the living room where the millionaire was working on his laptop. He smiled, closing the computer. He still managed his businesses, but now from home, with flexible hours that adapted to the family's needs. He discovered that it was possible to be successful without being obsessive, efficient without being cold. "I'll save him from the Play-Doh," he said, getting up and following Sophie to the playroom. Mikey, now 8 months old, was sitting surrounded by colorful toys, effectively trying to get a piece of pink Play-Doh into his mouth. When he saw the millionaire, he stretched out his arms, making the happy sounds that had replaced the constant crying of the first few months. "Hey, champ," he said, picking Mikey up. "Play-Doh is not food." "He doesn't listen," Sophie declared seriously. "I think he has selective hearing." The millionaire laughed. Sophie had created her own unique vocabulary, mixing words she heard from adults with her own interpretations. Selective hearing meant that Mikey only pretended not to understand when it suited him. Helen appeared in the doorway, her hands still covered in flour. "The cookies will be ready in 20 minutes. Sophie chose to make star-shaped ones because she said you like stars." He looked at Sophie, surprised. "I like stars." "Yeah, you always look at them when you think no one's watching, on the porch, at night." Grandma said people who look at stars are people who still have hope. The girl's observation struck him hard. He had started doing that, going out on the porch after the kids were asleep, looking at the sky, feeling a peace he had never experienced before. "Sophie's right," Helen said, approaching. "You've changed a lot." "We've all changed." It was true. Helen had become less bitter, more open. The pain of losing Carol was still there, always would be, but now she had a purpose, to honor her daughter's memory by taking good care of her grandson. Sophie had blossomed from a scared and distrustful child into a secure and expansive girl who made friends easily at school and slept without nightmares. Mikey was a happy, healthy baby, surrounded by love. And he had learned that wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in children's laughter echoing through the house. "Daddy," Sophie said, pulling on his shirt, "can I ask you something?" "Always." "Do you regret it?" "Regret what?" "Losing all that money because of us." He looked at her, confused. "What money, Sophie?" "The money from your company. Grandma said you fought with your brother and lost a bunch of money." Helen made an apologetic expression. She asked why you don't go to work in the tall building anymore. I tried to explain it in a way she would understand. The millionaire knelt in front of Sophie, placing Mikey sitting on the floor between them. "Sophie, look at me. Do you remember what my life was like before I met you?" "You were sad and lonely." "Exactly. I had a lot of money, but I didn't have a family. I didn't have love. I didn't have anything that really mattered." He held her small hands. "Now I have you. I have a house full of laughter. I have someone calling me Daddy. I have a son who smiles when he sees me. I have an ex-wife who's become a friend and the grandma of my children. So you don't regret it?" "Sophie, if I had to choose between all the money in the world and you, I would choose you. Every day. Forever." She smiled, giving him a hug. "I'd choose you too, Daddy." Mikey, sitting between them, clapped his hands as if applauding the declaration of love. At that moment, the doorbell rang. Helen went to answer it and returned accompanied by the social worker responsible for the family's monitoring, a young and competent woman who had replaced the corrupt Dr. Ramirez, now facing criminal charges. "How are things going here?" asked the social worker, smiling at the domestic scene. "Everything's great, Dr. Diaz," Helen replied. "The children are developing well, the family dynamic is stable." "I can see that." She watched Sophie playing with Mikey, the two laughing as he tried to grab her hair. "Sophie, how are you feeling at school?" "Good. My teacher said I'm smart, and I made a new friend who was also adopted. She said that foster families are sometimes better than normal families because you choose them with your heart." The social worker made some notes, clearly impressed. "And you," she addressed the millionaire, "how are you dealing with fatherhood? Learning every day, making mistakes sometimes, getting it right others, but never doubting the decision." "Well," said Dr. Diaz, closing her folder, "it's evident that this is a functional and loving family. I'm going to recommend the termination of the monitoring. The children are clearly where they should be." After she left, they gathered in the kitchen to eat the still warm cookies. Sophie talked about her day at school. Helen planned a trip for the weekend. Mikey made happy noises in his high chair. It was a common, domestic scene that millions of families lived every day around the world, but for the millionaire, it was a miracle. That night, after the children were asleep, he and Helen went out to the porch. The sky was clear, full of stars. "You really do look at the stars," Helen commented. "Sophie's taught me a lot of things. One of them is that there's always light, even in the deepest darkness. She's wise for a child. Children who have been through a lot grow up fast, but she's still a child enough to believe in happy endings. And you? Do you believe in happy endings?" He thought about the question, looking through the living room window where Sophie was sleeping, hugged to a teddy bear, and to the room where Mikey rested in his crib. "I believe in new beginnings, and I think sometimes they're better than happy endings." Helen smiled. "Carol would be proud of the man you've become, of the family you gave her son." "I hope so." They were silent for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. "You know," Helen said finally, "when Carol was little, she used to say she wanted to have a big family, full of love, where no one would be alone." "She got it," he replied. "Through Mikey, she gave us exactly that." The next morning, Sophie woke them up early, as she always did on weekends. "Family," she announced solemnly, "today is a special day." "Why?" asked Helen, still half asleep. "Just because. Every day with family is a special day." And as they gathered for another noisy and happy breakfast, the millionaire knew that Sophie was right. Every day with family was special. Every day was a miracle. Every day was proof that love can save anyone, even a millionaire who thought he didn't need anything, and a little girl who thought no one wanted her. They had met in the darkness and had created light, together. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to receive new stories every day. What would you do in the millionaire's shoes? Comment below and share this story with someone special.